The events begin on a sunny morning in the estate of Marquis Hugo. There slept a young lady, beautiful as a sleeping beauty. Her deep sleep was interrupted by someone calling her loudly. Her family was having lunch downstairs. Their gaze sharply turned to the side. The doors were opened by a lady who asked for attention. She was the top graduate of the Academy's magic faculty. The lady was given the title of Countess for her outstanding achievements. The girl is a candidate for the post of the next owner of the Magic Tower. Her name is Aracelia Hugo, and she announced that she is marrying Lord Vandermeer. Hearing this, the family was very shocked and sat with their mouths open. Aracelia just announced her absurd marriage. She was a brilliant sorceress, famous throughout the world. 3 years ago, she planned to dedicate her life to the Magic Tower. Earlier, Aracelia stated that she would remain single forever. Mom thought she must have done something wrong again. Mom was furious at what she heard, while Dad tried to calm her down. Her sister asked her why she suddenly decided to get married. This is Aracelia's older sister, whose name is Iris Hugo. The girl stood in a stupor, not knowing what to answer. She knew she couldn't say it was all for her sister. Aracelia had prophetic dreams that no one knew about. It was the first dream in 5 years that terrified her. In that dream, she saw Iris dying because of a marriage of convenience. Aracelia descended into some kind of dungeon. With trembling legs, she saw Iris in front of her, sitting desperately behind bars. Iris was very exhausted, almost completely exhausted. Aracelia asked her for forgiveness for not being able to come to her earlier. Iris didn't listen to the apologies. She only thanked her sister for the visit. The girl's hands were all covered in abrasions, with broken nails. Aracelia apologized through tears that she couldn't protect her. Iris said it was her fault because she didn't know anything. Aracelia tried to prove to her that only her vile husband was to blame. She screamed that her husband was just a crazy bastard. The girl was perplexed as to how he dared to even think about treason. Iris looked at her sister and didn't even know what to answer her. Barely audible, she said that this would not have happened if it weren't for the will. Adding that then, Lord Vandermeer would inherit the duchy. Iris said she learned about the inheritance fight with her younger brother after the wedding. Lord Vandermeer was the captain of the Red Hawk Knights. Suddenly, Iris began to cough very hard, as if she was suffocating. Looking at my bloody hand, Iris said she had one request. She asked me to tell her parents and younger brother that she was very sorry. Clenching her fist, through tears, Iris asked to take care of their family. A few days later, Iris was executed as the wife of a traitor. The news spread too quickly, because treason is madness. Aracelia couldn't help but think that it should have been her, that it was she who was supposed to marry the Lord. And now, having comprehended her dream, Aracelia left the room. She couldn't tell her sister that the reason for wanting to get married was a dream. Iris thought that Aracelia was secretly meeting with the Lord. The girl said that she had never even seen his face. Iris stood there in bewilderment. Why then was she marrying him? Aracelia was outraged that his mother asked to call the family doctor. She said that there was already an agreement about marriage with the duchy anyway. The parents were stunned, not understanding how she knew about this. Aracelia said that very soon she would go to Lord Vandermeer. With a smile on her face and waving her hand, she said that it was time for her to go. The parents and Iris were shocked by everything that was happening. Aracelia headed to her room, lost in thought. She thought about the fact that her parents were already aware of everything. The girl could not forget that dream. She remembered it in every detail. My sister's wedding. It was pouring with rain. The weather was just terrible. Iris with Lord at the wedding ceremony. Behind Aracelia, whom no one sees. That petrified face of Iris, because of an unwanted marriage. She looked at all this with great anger, calling the Vandermeers damned. They used a marriage of convenience to decide who would be the heir. They used Aracelia's sister in a stupid fight for inheritance. She knew she couldn't let her sister marry the Lord. Taking pen in hand, she realized that there was only one way out of this. After writing the letter, she decided that she should marry him earlier. This way, Aracelia will be able to prevent her sister's death. She will not be able to forgive the sin of the family, because of which her sister died. With a wide smile, she realized that she was supposed to marry her younger brother, thus cleverly turning the tide of their battle for the inheritance. Taking the letter from her hand, she reviewed what she had written to the Lord. She informed him that she would come to see him very soon. Not much time passed, and here is Lord Vandermeer's estate. Upon entering his office, the Lord's younger brother found a letter on the table. The servant told the master that the letter was very urgent. Captain of the Red Hawk Knights, Damien Vandermeer. Taking the letter in his hands, he was surprised why Aracelia would write to him. Aracelia wrote directly that they would soon get married, and they needed to meet. adding that she had a very important conversation, which surprised Damien. Lord Damien Vandermeer, second son of the Vandermeer Duchy. He paid no attention to the letter and threw it into the fireplace, thinking that it was true that there were no adequate ones among the magicians. After reading the letter, he immediately swore not to get involved with Aricilia. However, it was too late. Aricilia had already arrived to Damien. The girl greeted Lord Vandermeer with a wide smile. With a sly smile, she asked if he had hurt his hand. Having said that he hadn't answered, she immediately rushed over. Looking at her, Damien only thought that she was abnormal. Damien's oath lasted only 3 days. 5 minutes before Aricilia's arrival, the knights were training. The knights turned to the captain and said that a young lady had come to see him. "This is Isaac Wind, vice captain of the Red Hawk Knights." Aricilia turned to him and said that he had appeared just in time. She said that she had to meet the Lord and asked where to find him. Upon seeing her, both the knights and the captain were stunned by the girl's beauty. The girl introduced herself to the captain, barely audibly, as if reluctantly, adding that she is one of the most famous magicians in the empire. The vice captain was quite surprised by what he heard. The knights began to discuss her, that she was the same eccentric from the tower. They called her an ill-mannered girl who showed up unannounced. The vice captain said that her presence was disrupting training. The girl told the knights that their boss was a real lazybones. The vice captain told her to refrain from such words. Aricilia said that it was nothing compared to what she had to go here for. This greatly outraged all the knights when they heard it. Suddenly, a loud step was heard behind Aricilia. The vice captain suddenly cried out that it was the captain. All the knights immediately bowed to Damien Vandermeer. He silently closed his eyes and lowered his head slightly. His expression changed when he noticed the girl next to the knights. Aricilia greeted the Lord with a smile and a loud voice. The girl came closer to him and stared intently into his eyes. Damien even opened his mouth in surprise and introduced himself. Aricilia asked why he ignored the letter. Damien felt a bit uneasy and didn't know what to answer. He slowly turned his head towards the vice captain. Damien ordered him and the knights to run 50 laps. Damien called Aricilia to come into his office. Inside, their true feelings were running high. They slowly headed to the estate, to the Lord's office. Damien was both shocked and disappointed by the young lady's behavior. They went up to Lord Vandermeer's office. Damien apologized for not responding to Aricilia's letter, saying that he had completely forgotten about it. The girl giggled, saying that this happens when you have a bad memory. Aricilia asked if he knew that there was already an agreement between their families about marriage. Damien was stunned, not knowing what to say to what he heard. He cried out sharply that even if it was true, he refused. Aricilia said it was not something to simply brush aside. Suddenly, she asked angrily why refuse. Last year, Aricilia dealt with the demonic beasts herself, adding that she is simply stunningly beautiful. She paused briefly, watching Damien's reaction. Aricilia asked if he wanted to remove his older brother. Seeing his emotions, she said that she could help him with this. Suddenly, Damien unexpectedly told her that it was her then. He said of the magician that he had appropriated the merits of the Order of Knights for himself. Aricilia was stunned. She could never have expected this. She was furious because she had saved his life back then. Damien said she was just biding her time to take advantage. From the loud slap on the table, the tea barely remained in the cup. Aricilia got up from the sofa and asked if he knew what gratitude was. Damien just looked at the girl with a smile and didn't answer. The marriage proposal almost turned into a challenge to a duel. A servant ran into the room, asking my lady to calm down. The maid ran up to the table and grabbed Aricilia by the hand. She shouted that she promised not to hit people anymore. Aricilia said that she simply had to teach this impudent knight a lesson. Suddenly, Damien told the maid to mind her own business. Taking the umbrella, Aricilia said that he would regret it very much. Damien, completely calm, said that he didn't need help. The girl finally shouted that he would still change his mind, adding that his place as heir depended on this marriage. She told him about his grandfather's will. Damien was shocked and didn't even know what to answer. The girl was very angry at the Lord and, waving her hand, began to leave. Damien remained on the couch in shock. He repeated in his head the words about the will, where a marriage of convenience is a condition of inheritance. Damien sat there in confusion, not knowing what to do. He grabbed his head and decided that he needed to find out everything in person first. As soon as Aricilia went outside, her hatred for the Lord only increased. Earlier, Aricilia succeeded in provoking a marriage proposal. She knew that if it weren't for Audrey, things would have gone badly for him. Aricilia returned home, her heart still full of anger. Her older sister came out to meet her, which surprised the girl. Behind Iris stood their younger brother, with his head down. Adrian Hugo, heir to Marquis Hugo, stood in tears. Araceliya laughed loudly, calling Adrian a freak. Iris asked to stop teasing her little brother. Adrian said that the reason for his tears was that Araceliya was getting married. Wiping away his tears, he said that he didn't like it at all. The girl looked at her brother with affection and said that she couldn't do otherwise. Turning to her sister, she said that she was absolutely serious. Araceliya said that she still would not abandon them and leave, adding that she would always be his second older sister. Iris looked at Alrian and said that Araceliya was right, adding that their roots will remain forever. Hearing all this, Adrian calmed down very quickly and smiled. His smile didn't last long, and he cried out. He said he just hated Lord Vandermeer. Araceliya said that then Iris would have to marry an even younger guy. Iris was surprised by what she heard, and asked if it was really calculated. Araceliya began to deny it, and a tear ran down her cheek. Iris said that her sister has a dream of becoming the mistress of a magic tower, adding that she should do whatever she wants, and not get involved in any nonsense. With a smile, Iris asked if she remembered that Araceliya had a sister. Araceliya's sister's face from her dream appeared before her eyes. Fear instantly appeared in her eyes, and she seemed to be stunned. Araceliya said that she wanted to marry Lord, not because of a marriage of convenience. Iris stood there in bewilderment and asked what the reason was then. Turning her head away, Araceliya said that she liked him as a person. Iris said that it was all a simple lie, and that people don't fall in love like that. With difficulty, Araceliya said that she really liked his face. It was hard for her to lie, especially after what happened. Adrian shouted that this was not like his sister at all. Araceliya said that she has everything anyway, so she chooses a man only for his appearance. Iris said that she always said that her sister's face was the best. Araceliya repeated that she was marrying Lord for love. Her sister's serious gaze made it hard for Araceliya to even look in their direction. She ran, saying that she was waiting for a letter from Lord Vandermeer. Adrian asked Iris if it was true that she was getting married. Taking each step with difficulty, Araceliya realized that she had done everything she could. Now, we need to wait for Damien to hurry up and agree to the wedding. She prayed every day in rage for him to answer faster. However, Damien did not respond again for a whole week. A week has passed since Damien ignored the letter. He learned all the information and realized that Araceliya was right. Damien was angry at his grandfather for leaving such a will. The family is already trying their best to erase Damien, and everyone in the ducal family knew about this will except him, all for the sake of giving everything to his worthless brother. Damien was in great despair and knew he had to stop this. He remembered their conversation with Araceliya, almost verbatim, when she said she would help him overthrow his brother and take the title. He looked at the ceiling and didn't understand what was the best thing to do. This stupid marriage of convenience is a direct imperial decree, an order that no one in this empire would dare to disobey. If Damien marries Araceliya, the entire duchy will be his. He repeated Araceliya's name in his head several times. After sitting for a while, he realized that she didn't seem completely crazy. Milady has finally received a letter from Lord Vandermeer. Audrey was surprised that Milady had been secretly meeting with the Lord all this time. She remembered Araceliya when she was still very young, who enjoyed little things. Audrey's thoughts were interrupted by Araceliya's unexpected cry. Araceliya, clutching the letter, shouted that Damien was just a scumbag. Audrey took the torn letter and began to read it. The knight asked to meet in a cafe to discuss their previous conversation. Araceliya was furious that he didn't answer for a week. Audrey, with a smile on her face, asked my lady to calm down. Milady was also outraged by the fact that Damien signed his order. Audrey thought it was quite unique, as many people use their last name. Araceliya was furious, continuing to call Damien a scumbag. She began to write him a letter, saying that time would tell who would win. Turning to Audrey, she asked her to send a letter to Lord. Audrey decided to read what my lady wrote in response. Araceliya suggested that Damien meet at 5 o'clock, although Damien asked her to meet at 3 o'clock. Audrey chuckled at how childish they were and walked away. Araceliya stared out the window. She couldn't calm down. Looking at the moon, Damien repeated to himself that Araceliya was crazy. As soon as Araceliya imagined their meeting, her gaze filled with anger. The same thing happened with Damien. He was not at all delighted with everything. Araceliya understood that as soon as she got what she wanted, she would demand a divorce. Night fell for a couple who had agreed to go on their first date. The next day, Araceliya went to the magic tower. Milady watched the stones floating in the air. In front of her were Aracelia's younger colleagues, Sally and Rudy. The girl said she wished the stones would float higher. Sally's colleagues said they would try to do everything. Milady asked me to prepare a report on today's research. Aracelia said that she had a meeting, and it was time for her to leave. The colleagues were surprised, because Milady had not left so early in 100 years. Sally noticed that Aracelia was trying very hard not to be late. Having sat down in the carriage, Aracelia shouted loudly for them to hurry. Aracelia and Audrey were thrown from side to side by the speed. The horse seemed to be flying, and Aracelia continued to ask to speed up. Finally, they arrived at Forgan's cafe to meet Damien. Aracelia said with a smile that it was time to settle everything. Audrey tried to explain that Aracelia didn't look like she was going on a date, but it was all pointless. Audrey could only style her hair. Aracelia said that she would go alone and that Audrey would wait outside. She tried to stop my lady, but she was in her own thoughts. Audrey felt both fear and shame at the same time. Aracelia walked proudly and confidently towards Damien's table. Approaching the table, she greeted the Lord with a smile. Putting the cup on the table, Damien said in a menacing voice that she was late. Looking at Aracelia, he said that it was 3 minutes late. Aracelia didn't pay attention to the words, but she noticed his knightly form. When Aracelia herself was in the clothes of the magic tower, Damien told her to order something for herself as soon as possible. After waiting a little, the waiter brought the order to the table. There was a deathly silence between them, with intense gazes. Suddenly, Aracelia asked what? Did he really need her? Not expecting to hear this, Damien even opened his mouth. He said he admitted he needed her. Aracelia thought that it turned out to be easier than she thought. Damien said that then they needed to come to an agreement. He asked what Aracelia wanted from this marriage. The girl said she wanted her sister not to marry Vandermeer. Damien listened attentively to the girl without interrupting. She added that she wants him to divorce her as soon as possible. Damien agreed with her and offered to discuss the terms. He laid down conditions, the last one being that she would divorce him as soon as he inherited the duchy. Aracelia said that everything fits and smiled broadly. Audrey hid but didn't hear anything, hoping that everything was okay. Milady said that she had already told her parents that they were together. Damien said that this had to be kept a secret from his family. Aracelia was surprised by what she heard and asked why. Damien said that if they find out, they will definitely try to stop it. The girl was surprised at how much influence his older brother had. Aracelia tried to rethink what was happening in their family. The girl said that they needed to think with their heads. She asked if he knew about the royal ball the prince was hosting, a ball where all the young nobles of high society will gather. Aracelia said that they will announce their wedding there. Hearing this, Damien was stunned. He was not prepared for this. Damien screamed that if they screwed up, they would be blamed for ruining the event. The girl said that the crown prince was one of her few friends. Aracelia said that it would be better to announce it publicly. She extended her hand and said that they would figure out the rest step by step. With a smile, Aracelia said that she was counting on him. Damien was slightly confused and surprised by such actions and words. He said that one of the conditions was no unnecessary physical contact. The girl said that this happens to forgetful people. She felt awkward, but she was more angered that he put such an emphasis on it. Audrey was curious about how my lady was enjoying herself on a date. She didn't notice Damien leaving the cafe with a serious face. As soon as she noticed him, she didn't understand why he came out alone. A voice filled with anger came from behind her. Audrey asked cautiously what had happened to them. The girl screamed loudly at Audrey that it was time for them to go. Aracelia said that she needed a dress for the royal ball. Audrey was overjoyed that my lady would finally wear a dress. Approaching the carriage, the girl told the coachman that she would drive. The man was confused, but Audrey said that everything was fine. Damien's rage took over, and they rode quickly. Aracelia rushed at full speed to get a dress for the royal ball. The girl screamed loudly that she would definitely take revenge for everything. The long-awaited and partly anxious day of the ball arrived. Iris asked her sister if she was really going to announce the wedding. The girl said that tomorrow, she plans to fill the front pages of all the newspapers, adding that Frederick said it didn't bother him at all. Frederick, the second prince of the empire, a close friend of Aracelia. He was considered a contender for the throne in opposition to the first prince. Audrey, hearing this, exhaled heavily. She said she was worried about the broken hearts of the ladies at the ball. Iris said that Audrey was right, because Damien was every noble lady's dream. In his youth, he went abroad to study and returned as the youngest swordmaster in history. Even marriage is enough to make enemies in high society. Iris was angry. Aracelia always has that expression when she's not interested. The girl grabbed her sister by the hand and asked her to give her a promise that there will be no incidents today except the wedding announcement. Aracelia simply shook her head with a sly smile. At that moment, Iris heard Aracelia's confident answer. She felt that Aracelia was about to make an even bigger scandal. The ball took place in the imperial palace of the Cetron Empire. There were many different snacks and alcoholic drinks on the tables. All the high society gathered, many young noble people. It was announced that Lady Iris and Aracelia Hugo had arrived. Aracelia panicked slightly at the number of people taken away. This is the number of guests required for a palace ball. The girls began to discuss that Aracelia had not appeared in public for a long time. Aracelia realized that several minutes had passed, and she was already being discussed. They said it looked like Hugo's ladies would take away all the invitations to the dance, but they laughed at them, because not everyone is a fool, obsessed with appearance. Aracelia only enjoyed being discussed. She wanted all this gossip to fly everywhere. Iris, from behind her sister's back, suddenly said in surprise that her sister should look forward. The girl turned her head with displeasure, trying to understand what was being discussed. She saw Damien Vandermeer in all his glory. Damavin raised his head up, fixing his gaze on Aracelia. All the girls immediately cried out in admiration. Everyone was talking about how handsome he was, like a living statue. Damien approached Aracelia and greeted her kindly. The girls were shocked that Sir Vandermeer spoke to her. In an instant, absolutely everyone began to discuss them, trying to understand what was between them. Damien was waiting for the meeting to make the engagement announcement. Aracelia was waiting for the meeting with a mad desire for revenge. The guests couldn't take their eyes off them. People thought that Aracelia and Lord Vandermeer were dating. They were the center of attention, and generally the center of the room. Aracelia decided that the long-awaited moment had arrived. The girl extended her hand to Lord Vandermeer. Aracelia asked with a smile if he would honor her with a dance. Everyone was shocked by what they saw, but also touched at the same time. Aracelia's sister, Iris, was also happy for them, although slightly embarrassed. Damien felt somehow uneasy. He felt awkward about this. One of the conditions was no unnecessary physical contact. Aracelia found this funny. She understood that he would not be able to refuse. The guests understood that as a gentleman, he had no right to refuse. Damien clenched his teeth in anger at Aracelia. Damien asked to be allowed to take the lady to the dance floor. Damien, slightly embarrassed, looked intently at the girl. Aracelia didn't expect at all that he would agree. Iris was convinced that they were indeed dating. Aracelia and Damien fooled everyone perfectly. After all the tears and efforts, they reached the final step. The music started playing, and Aracelia and Damien began to dance. Damien asked when she planned to make the announcement. The girl said that because of his facial expression, everyone might think that they were about to quarrel. Damien said that the expression on his face wasn't because of the dancing. He didn't even touch Aracelia's back. Clenching his fist, Damien said he just didn't like dancing. The dance didn't last long, fortunately for Damien. The servant announced that Lady Aracelia had an important announcement to make. The girls' faces changed dramatically, and they all turned their heads towards the center of the hall. The guests began to look at each other and try to understand what was going on. Aracelia and Damien stood together, waiting for everyone to gather. Damien had been waiting for this moment for a long time, but he began to get nervous. Aracelia did not hesitate and said directly that she was getting married. All the guests were stunned, not understanding how this was even possible. No one could believe it, because Damien was a knight and Aracelia was a magician. Aracelia said that was all she wanted to announce. A voice came from the crowd of guests asking Aracelia to wait. It was Frederick. Aracelia was glad to see him again. Frederick, perplexed, asked to explain what all this meant. 7 years ago, there was an entrance ceremony to the academy. Frederick noticed the girl and asked if she knew where the ceremony was taking place. The girl turned around, pointed her finger, and rudely said what was there. It was Aracelia. She looked a little upset. Frederick was stunned by her beauty. He thought she was simply beautiful. He had already fallen in love with her back then. And then she announced her marriage. Hearing this news, he was stunned, not understanding what was happening. Frederick still suffered from unrequited love. He asked Aracelia what she meant by marriage. The girl and Damien stood there perplexed by this question. He said desperately that she never mentioned marriage. Everyone began to greet His Highness the Crown Prince. Frederick turned to everyone and saw many people. He seemed to have forgotten that so many eyes were watching him. Frederick shouted so loudly that he caused a great commotion. Aracelia addressed Frederick carefully and in a quiet voice. She asked if they could talk somewhere else. The prince stood in a stupor, his face showing all the despair from the situation. They went into the garden to be alone and talk quietly. Aracelia said that it was not like him at all, that he showed weakness. Frederick asked again if it was true that she was marrying Vandermeer. Araceliya only smiled in response. She understood that this was true. The prince reminded her that she had said she would never marry. Araceliya said that Damien completely changed her mind. Frederick remembered the promise they had made in the library at the academy. Frederick then proposed marriage if they remained unmarried by the age of 40. Araceliya smiled, but agreed to this proposal. She was shocked that he remembered it. 7 years had passed. The girl said that she was just supporting the game at the time. Frederick asked if she didn't understand how much he cared for her. Araceliya said that she knows all this and he does a lot as a friend. The girl apologized to him for not telling him earlier. She said that this was her conscious choice and asked to respect it. Hearing this, Frederick was even more shocked and couldn't even move. A strange smile appeared on his face, and he lowered his head slightly. Frederick turned away from the girl abruptly and apologized. He quickly began to walk away without even looking back. Araceliya felt uneasy. She didn't understand why he was so angry. The prince walked deeply immersed in his thoughts. Damien stood nearby, watching everything carefully. Time flew by quickly, and the royal ball was over. The next day, all the newspapers were already reporting the marriage. People were talking about how this could cause a big stir. The news of the wedding spread throughout the empire. Araceliya and Damien arrived to meet Araceliya's parents. Damien was not ready for such a serious conversation and became nervous. The guy was outraged that she only told him about the meeting yesterday. Damien asked if there was any point worth paying attention to. The girl said she hoped he was ready to take their beloved daughter. At the entrance stood Marquis Hugo and Araceliya's younger brother. They looked like they were ready to eat Damien. Araceliya's mother thanked them for coming. Damien said it was an honor to meet Marquise and Marchioness Hugo. Before he could finish speaking, the boy ran forward and shouted that he was against the marriage. He shouted loudly for Damien not to dare take his sister, adding that his sister was still too young to get married. Adrian shouted that no matter who he was, this was all unacceptable. Damien felt a bit awkward and calmly turned to Adrian. He came closer and crouched down so that they were on the same level. Damien said that he would marry Araceliya even if they put a knife to his throat. The boy did not expect to hear this at all, and was even a little scared. But realizing what he said made Adrian even more angry. Adrian ran to his mother in tears, screaming that he didn't like any of this. Marquis Hugo, Araceliya's father, stood in bewilderment at his son's behavior. Damien was shocked by this situation and was very nervous. They all went to the estate for lunch together. The Marquis, taking the glass, said that he would not delay and would ask directly. He asked why Damien decided to marry Araceliya. Damien closed his eyes. He understood that this was a very difficult part of the conversation for him. He said that he realized that life with her would never be boring. The Marchioness asked if this was the only reason for marriage. Worried, she asked what would happen if he simply got tired of her. Damien said it was something they would decide together. The Marchioness said that marriage is the most important decision in life, adding that it means being ready to spend your whole life together. Both Araceliya and Damien sat rooted to the spot, deeply worried. The Marchioness asked seriously if they were ready to spend their whole lives together. Damien and Araceliya opened their mouths. They didn't understand how best to answer. Araceliya had only 2 words in her head her whole life. Damien kept telling himself that they would be together, which made him even more nervous. It was clear from their faces that they hated each other. The Marquise sat there, perplexed as to why both of them were simply silent. She said that if they behave like this, then they shouldn't get married. Damien cried out that he needed time to comprehend the future. Araceliya said that for them, marriage is the most important thing in life. The Marquise hesitantly agreed with them and said that she had something else. The Marquise told him not to expect Araceliya to support her husband. Damien said he didn't need his wife's help. He said that whatever the lady did, he was not going to interfere. The Marquise asked, "What? Will he really not interfere with the work in the Tower of Magic?" Damien said that he didn't even have the right to stop her. This was the reason why Hugo's family was shocked by Damien's words. Conservative tower mages, who are second only to anyone else in this regard. But an even more conservative group than the magicians are the knights. So just one word from Damien was enough to melt hearts. The Marquis said that he thought that only he could be a good man for his daughter. Damien said that there was no need to worry so much about their wedding. Adrian, all this time, was barely holding back, covering his face with his hand. His eyes were red from crying. He said he had a question. Damien calmly said that he could ask him any question. Adrian asked if Damien knew how to be nice. Araceliya accidentally spat out the wine from the unexpectedness of such a question. Adrian said that his sister likes men who are nice. It was just a lie to get affection from Adrian. Damien sat in a stupor. He didn't understand what to answer. The boy asked to show more affection to his sister. He also asked to take good care of his elder sister. Thanks to Adrian, the meeting ended in a warm atmosphere. They all went outside to say goodbye to the Lord. Suddenly, Lord Marquis called Lord Vandermeer to him. He said he had something to tell him. Mr. Marquis extended his hand very slowly, but confidently. He told him to take care of his daughter, which was unexpected for Damien, adding that he wanted Aracelia to be safe under his wing for the rest of her life. But he realized that there are no children in the world who completely follow the will of their parents. Damien stood in a stupor. He felt somehow uneasy from such words. The Marquis asked to keep his words and leave Aracelia free. Damien shook the Marquis's hand and told him that he need not worry, adding that this is exactly what he intends to do. The Marquis felt as if a weight had been lifted from his soul and thanked Damien. Aracelia said that she would walk the Lord to the carriage. Adrian asked his sister to come back quickly. Aracelia smiled and told him to go back inside. The girl and the Lord walked in silence, almost to the carriage. Suddenly, Damien said that it seemed like the lady had grown up in love. He stopped and turned to the girl, waiting for an answer. With a smile, Aracelia said that she grew up in great love. Damien smiled and said that was why she could always be so confident. The girl said that believing in her family makes her even more confident. Aracelia decided to ask why he was asking about this. Damien's face changed in an instant, as if he was afraid of something. He immediately remembered how everyone was touched only by his brother Oscar. But Damien always remained on the sidelines, as if no one needed him. Damien hesitated slightly, trying to think of what to say. He said he was curious about the origin of such an eccentric character. Aracelia didn't answer, and they continued walking towards the carriage. The girl said that a meeting with the Duke's family needed to be arranged soon. Damien said that people from the ducal house would most likely arrive the day after tomorrow. Aracelia asked him to send her a letter that day. She also asked if there was anything else that needed to be prepared. Damien said she just needed to be prepared to take her second son, who was an eyesore. He said with a smile that he would then send the letter again. The carriage slowly moved towards Lord Vandermeer's estate. Aracia thought about Damien's words about him being an eyesore. In the mansion of Duke Vandermeer, a crash was heard in one of the rooms. The Duchess cried out that Damien Vandermeer was just a cunning boy. She screamed that he was nobody to cause such a commotion. She seemed to be hysterical. She was screaming that she would not forgive him. The whole room was covered in broken vases, and the curtains were also torn. The Duchess sternly said that the carriage should be prepared immediately. This is Damien's stepmother, Sophie, who decided it was time to take a look at her second son. Aracelia Hugo arrived at Damien Vandermeer's estate. She was really looking forward to meeting the ducal family and was mentally prepared. She was met by a butler, who said he would show her inside. The girl heard a voice that Lord Vandermeer was a real fool. Some girl rushed past and touched Aracelia. It was the eldest daughter of the house of Marquis White, Nora White. Nora screamed that Aracelia had bumped into her on purpose. Aracelia said that in her field of vision, Nora is not even visible. Nora cried out in tears that she could not forgive Lady Hugo. She said that Aracelia always steals the men she likes. Aracelia responded to this by saying that she didn't even know who she was. A voice suddenly came from the second floor. It was Lord Vandermeer. He asked why Lady White had not left yet. The girl screamed his name through tears. The house of Marquis White competed with the Aracelia family for the rights to the magical quarry and lost. The Lord said that if the lady came any closer, he would take legal action. The girl indignantly said that this was too much, adding that he knows how much she loves him. The Lord asked if she meant how she had been chasing him one-sidedly. The Lord asked the butler to show Lady White. Turning his head slightly, he called Aracelia to him. The girl continued to shout something hysterically. Aracelia, listening to this, even felt pleasure. Lady White cried out that she would yet take revenge on Lady Hugo. Damien said that she was acting like that because she came alone. Aracelia said that it was good that she had arranged all this before her relatives arrived, to which Damien desperately said that they were already here. Aracelia asked in fear if his family had seen all this. Afterwards, the girl hurried to see them and quickly resolve everything. Damien said they would do everything to stop this marriage, adding that they are trying their best not to leave him any inheritance. He asked hesitantly if she was really sure about this meeting. The girl was scared and didn't understand what to do now. She told him not to worry about her, but to think about himself, adding that she too intends to do her best. Aracelia, having collected her thoughts, carefully knocked on the door. As soon as she opened the door, she immediately introduced herself. She thanked them for inviting her. In the room, the Duchess sat proudly on the sofa, and the Duke stood near the window. The Duke asked if she wanted to marry Damien. It was Damien's father, Alex Vandermeer, who, upon hearing the positive answer, made a strange noise. The Duchess asked why Araceliya had decided to get married so abruptly, adding sarcastically that this seemed like low intentions towards her son. She said she was forced to suspect her motives. Damien felt awkward about the offensive words his mother used. Araceliya screamed that she was getting married solely because of Damien's appearance. Hearing this, the Duchess was stunned. She never expected to hear such an answer. Araceliya added that she is now more careful than ever. She said that she already has everything, so appearance is above all else. Araceliya seemed to be floating in the clouds. She was laughing and spinning. These were poisonous and shocking statements from Araceliya. Damien's parents decided that the girl had gone crazy. The Duchess said she did not like the lady as a match for her son. The girl pretended to be scared and upset. Araceliya bit her lip slightly and said that it was burning. The shocked parents did not understand what was being discussed. Turning to Damien, she said she meant a passion for beauty. The Duchess thought for a moment and realized that she had underestimated the lady. Araceliya slowly ran her finger down Damien's cheek, which made the Duchess even more angry, and she decided that she was not just crazy. So the meeting took place under one-sided attacks from Araceliya. The ducal couple completely lost their fighting spirit. Damien kindly said goodbye to Araceliya and led her to the carriage. Araceliya suddenly leaned over and hung over Damien. He was slightly embarrassed and quite surprised. The girl said with a smile that now only the wedding remained. Damien exhaled easily and smiled. They exchanged glances with him again. Damien did not take his eyes off him. Afterwards, the carriage immediately set off for Hugo's estate. Damien watched the carriage go by. But suddenly, a female voice was heard. The Duchess asked him if he really thought that by behaving like that, he could take away what belonged to Oscar. Anger appeared on her face and she clenched her teeth. Damien, turning his head slightly, only smiled. The Duchess shouted at him not to get cocky. He added that no matter how you look at it, he remains a loser. Damien responded to this by saying that he would definitely become a winner someday. The Duchess looked at him as Damien walked slowly away, adding that he would do exactly as the Duchess had done. This made the woman even more angry, and she tried to say something else. But Damien did not pay attention to her at all and left. The Duchess looked after him with a strong feeling of hatred. She realized that he was behaving exactly like his mother. With a sly smile, she decided that she would still show herself. The Duke and Duchess of Vandermeer asked to meet with the spouses of Marquis Hugo. There were chests of jewels on the table in the living room. The Duke offered a reward for their refusal to marry. Unexpectedly, he proposed his second son, Oscar, as a candidate. The Marquis said that the best person for his daughter is Damien. The Duchess proposed to marry Iris to Oscar. Damien often got into trouble since childhood. The Duchess spoke about this with all her hatred and sadness. He added that because of this, he was even sent abroad to study. Suddenly, the Marquise shouted out that they had absolute confidence in Damien, adding that their children should live the way they want. The Duchess understood that this marriage had to be prevented anyway. There was silence in the living room, and suddenly there was a knock at the door. The servant reported that a letter had just arrived from the imperial palace. The Marchioness said that it was very fortunate that the letter arrived just now, adding that this marriage is also the will of His Imperial Majesty. She said that she immediately informed His Majesty about the marriage. His Majesty was sincerely glad to receive this letter. The butler brought 2 letters for the Marquise and the Duke. There was a strong sense of tension and excitement in the living room. The Marquise looked at the Duke with a smile and called them matchmakers. This shocked them greatly, and they were stunned by the unexpectedness. The conversation led nowhere, and the ducal family went home. The Duchess did not expect that the Marchioness would inform the Emperor so quickly. The Duke was troubled by the thought that Damien would become the heir. That guy who absolutely no one needs. Damien, who as a child was sent abroad alone. Even then, the Duke looked at him with disdain. Damien was very angry with his father. He looked at him from under his forehead. He told his father that he is a coward who hides behind a woman's back. Remembering this situation, the Duke firmly said that their marriage could not be allowed. He turned to Sophie, and she looked at him questioningly. The Duke asked that when meeting with Araceliya, she touched her. In the Magic Tower, colleagues have already begun to question the truth about marriage. Araceliya said with a smile that the wedding date was set for a month. Sally called Araceliya in a quiet voice. She asked, would she really abandon the Magic Tower then? Araceliya said with confidence that she would become the mistress here, adding that there was no need to worry about trifles. There was a loud knock on the door in the office. The owner of the magic tower entered, asking for Aricilia. Aricilia didn't expect to see him now at all. The head of the magic tower is named Philip. He said that he found out about the marriage. Slightly upset, he said he had been waiting for her to tell him. Philip kindly offered to have tea with him. The owner said he thought she was crazy at first. Laughing, he said that it was time for him to do the same. While still a student at the academy, Aricilia declared that she was not going to get married. Aricilia said with a smile that this was not a real marriage. Philip wondered what she wanted from Damien. He asked if she remembered the story of the marriage between the magician and the knight. Lost in thought, Aricilia asked if he meant the Litterson case. The magician deliberately approached the knight in order to kill him. Philip said that some say that Aricilia is the reincarnation of that witch. This made Aricilia very angry, calling them scoundrels. In response, Philip just laughed while drinking tea. He said the situation was worrying, adding that after that incident, things became more difficult for female magicians. He asked if this marriage was really more important than her future. Aricilia was in a stupor, not knowing what to answer Philip. She immediately remembered her sister and brother. Clenching her suit into a fist, she answered hesitantly that she did, adding that this is definitely more important than her future. She said she would marry him no matter what happened. Philip said that if this was her wish, he would support it. He asked if Frederick was okay. Philip said that he had stopped sending letters to the tower. Aricilia suddenly cried out nervously that she had forgotten something. She realized that she had completely forgotten about him. Aricilia wrote him a letter so that when he cooled down, he could answer. Reading the letter, Frederick realized that this was typical of her. He sat with a thoughtful face, rereading the letter. Frederick did not understand how she agreed to this marriage. After thinking about it some more, he decided that there was something fishy going on here. He asked his servant to conduct an investigation into Damien. Frederick could not accept this marriage and hired surveillance of Aricilia. At that time, heated discussions about the Duke continued in the carriage. The Duchess continued to be indignant about Damien. The Duke sat in his thoughts and said that he would decide everything. Hearing this, the Duchess was filled with love for the Duke. She admired him and was delighted at how handsome he was. Aricilia arrived to meet the Duchess and was late again. The Duchess was furious that Damien was also present. Aricilia said that no one specified that she should be alone. Damien said that they were busy people and asked that this be the last meeting before the wedding. He looked at Sophie with displeasure and hatred. The Duchess, too, did not take her angry gaze off him. Aricilia asked why she called her. The Duchess called the servant over to her menacingly. The servant handed some papers to Lady Hugo and asked her to read them. Aricilia, perplexed as to what it was, began to read. It was a list of wedding dresses and expensive jewelry. A new luxury mansion in the capital was also indicated. Aricilia, seeing this, could not even say anything. The Duchess looked at the girl with delight and a smile. She said that they should compensate them for Damien's house. Damien asked Aricilia to look at these papers. With slight anxiety, the lady handed the stack of papers to Damien. The Duchess said there would be no compromise. Damien began to carefully study everything that was written. Throwing the sheets of paper on the table, he told her to cut the list in half. The Duchess, with a cry, repeated that there would be no compromise. Damien said that he was planning an audience with the Emperor, adding that they should turn to someone whose authority no one would dispute. The Duchess asked in a rage if he was threatening her. Damien said he was just offering a choice. Sophie frowned and glared at Damien. She said that then, after the wedding, Aricilia would move to the duchy. Aricilia said that she would never leave her post in the magic tower. Sophie said that after marriage, she was obliged to leave the service. The girl said that she does not and will not have such an intention. Sophie said that she was then forced to speak out against the marriage again. Aricilia said that she was not getting married to serve Damien. Sophie asked how she was raised in the Marquis's house. The lady was furious and perplexed by what was happening. Clenching her fists, she realized that she had just insulted her family. Aricilia said that she was taught not to interfere in the affairs of other people's sons. She looked menacingly at the Duchess, not at all afraid of her. Sophie screamed something in response, and Aricilia pretended to be scared. She laughed sharply and said that it was not her problem. Sophie was even more angered that the girl laughed at her. Damien said that Aricilia would live with him in the capital. He also asked since when she began to consider him family, adding that it was time for her to stop. Sophie was furious, not understanding how he could demand recognition of his rights. Aricilia said that since her husband had decided so, she would follow him, asked if it is not the wife's main duty to obey her husband. Aricilia laughed at Sophie and pouted. The Duchess screamed at the lady to stop her nonsense. Damien got up from the couch and said that they would see each other at the wedding. The Duchess said that she was not finished yet. Finally, Aracelia's said that Sophie should remain in good health. Damien carefully placed his hand on Aracelia's back. The girl was very surprised. She didn't expect this from him. She remembered his words about there being no unnecessary touching. They walked slowly and carefully down the long stairs. Aracelia wondered what else they needed to prepare. She said she would let me know when the dowry list was agreed upon. Damien said that he takes care of half of everything. He added that it remains to formalize the contract and the marriage certificate. Damien said that they would visit the temple the day before the wedding. The girl screamed that he still needed to swing the sword. She was running away from Damien and accidentally stepped on the dress, and now she began to fall. Seeing a bunch of steps ahead of her, she closed her eyes in great fear. Damien reacted quickly and, despite his principles, reached out to her. He was able to catch Aracelia so that she wouldn't fly head over heels. Aracelia cried out his name in surprise. Damien himself was very afraid for the lady. Exhaling heavily, she thanked him with a smile on her face. But before she could stand up straight, she fell backwards. Damien yelled at her to be careful. He said that anything could happen before the wedding, adding that those who are against their marriage can take any action. Clenching his fists, he asked her to be careful. Not hearing any answer, he asked the butler to show Aracelia, but the girl clearly wanted to say something and called Damien. She noticed that he was acting especially strange today. Aracelia didn't understand why she was so irritable. There were only 7 days left before the wedding. The Marchioness shouted at Aracelia to put in a little effort for the wedding. Aracelia understood that she would rip out the throats of those who would discuss her wedding behind her back. She said that she had to go to work soon and suggested trying on the dress later. The girl was outraged that she was being forced to do this. Iris said that her jokes shouldn't be taken seriously. The Marchioness said that all that remained was to arrange Iris's wedding. Iris said that she would gradually take a closer look herself. Aracelia said that if her sister doesn't get married, it will be very interesting. Seeing her angry mother, the girl immediately said that it was a joke. The Marchioness said that it was Iris who was the one with the greatest hopes. Iris said there was no need to worry. Aracelia told her mother to stop pressuring her sister, adding that if things continued like this, Iris would suffocate from stress. The Marquise screamed that Aracelia should then try to be like her. Aracelia exhaled heavily with a grin. The Marquise took a swing at Aracelia, saying that she herself does not listen to anyone. She asked to try on at least 2 dresses before work. Iris said that even though her mother was grumbling, she was actually happy, adding that if it had been an arranged marriage, she would have had to try on the dress. Iris said she would never give up her sister for a political deal. Aracelia looked at her sister in surprise, not quite understanding her. The lady asked why Iris had to enter into a marriage of convenience. The girl answered this because she has a dream, adding that her dream is to get married successfully. Aracelia said that this was not her dream, but her mother's. Iris looked at Aracelia with disappointment, not knowing what to answer. Seeing her sister's face, the girl said that it was too late. Aracelia said that she would already go to work and asked not to tell her mother. Iris stood in one place for a few more minutes, lost in her thoughts. She realized that she had never thought about her dream. Time flew by unnoticed, and Aracelia was already getting ready to go home. Her colleagues were already on edge. Research had been at a standstill for several weeks. Coming out of the magic tower, there was a man standing in the way. He said that he was instructed to deliver to Aracelia. Raising his head, he said that this was Damien's order. Aracelia recognized this man. He was the captain of the knights. The girl found out that he asked to take her to the mansion. She understood what Damien was afraid of when he spoke about caution. Aracelia then looked at him in bewilderment. She didn't understand at all then that his words would turn out to be real. Aracelia sat down in the carriage hesitantly and fearfully. She noticed the captain's intent gaze on her. She was incredibly curious about what they had prepared for her. The coachman, at one point, raised his hand with his index finger extended upward. On the roof of the building, 3 men were waiting for the signal. Seeing a sign clearly addressed to them, they tuned in. They were told that their target was a magician from a noble aristocratic house. Aracelia remained completely calm, but her curiosity was off the charts. The Duke himself entrusted this task to the knights. He told them to inflict wounds on her so that the victim would not be able to move for several days. The captain decided that she needed to break a couple of limbs. Aracelia said something sharply to the captain, which made him flinch. The girl put her hand forward, and a glowing ball appeared on her palm. She asked if he thought it was normal to have a couple of broken limbs. A second later, a magical explosion occurred in the carriage. The men on the roof were quite frightened when they saw this. The carriage door opened, and a column of smoke came out of it. The wounded captain, barely audibly, told Araceliya to run. One of the knights remembered that they had been told that she was fragile. All three realized that they had messed with the wrong person. They had no choice, so they jumped straight from the roof onto the lady. But Araceliya was not going to give up. Nothing could frighten her. With all her anger, she directed the ball straight at one of the knights. He screamed loudly in pain and gave a signal to the other two. Two knights from different sides ran straight towards Araceliya, and now one of them was right behind the girl. Araceliya said that this really irritates her. Small particles of magic began to appear around the lady. She was very angry at the ducal family for such actions. In an instant, the piece of wood in the knight's hands shattered into two pieces. Araceliya was confident in her abilities and had no intention of retreating. The bat in the hands of the second knight was also broken. They were perplexed that not a single blow had landed. They were quite scared when they saw her abilities. Araceliya began to lift off from the ground, flying upward. She said that the tower's mages receive stars for their achievements. With her spells, she bound two knights. With a sly smile, she told them not to hope for an easy death. The knights were afraid to even move. They knelt before her. Having dealt with them, Araceliya headed to Damien's mansion. Three knights sat tied up on the floor right in front of Damien. Araceliya said that his father sent them to her as a gift. She asked to talk about it calmly, being angry. Damien was shocked by what he saw and simply remained silent. The captain said that the Duke had indeed given them an order. He added that he ordered that Araceliya be beaten so that she would not move. Damien, hearing this, immediately asked if Araceliya was okay. Araceliya was slightly surprised and said that everything was fine with her. Damien tried to comprehend what had happened and could not come to his senses. He said that he was perhaps more concerned about her well-being than anyone else. These words made Araceliya turn to stone. She didn't expect that from him. The girl asked to take them away because their appearance was very frightening. Damien immediately came to the butler to take them away immediately. Araceliya watched as these knights were led out. Damien turned to the lady and asked for clarification on something. He awkwardly asked if she wanted to call off the wedding after this. Araceliya said that this situation even excited her, adding that she doesn't want her sister to marry Oscar. Damien said he got the impression that she was more convinced of this than he was, adding that it was as if she knew that her sister would meet a sad end. Araceliya, hesitantly and thoughtfully, said that everything was possible. The girl said that her intuition tells her everything. Araceliya said that this is why she is going to marry the unlucky knight. She also said that she would not back down, and he could rest assured. Damien felt awkward. He even smiled strangely. Damien vowed that such situations would never happen again. Araceliya, going outside, said that it was already late and it was time for her to go, adding that they would discuss the terms of the contract tomorrow. Damien towered over the girl and stared into her eyes. The girl felt somehow uneasy and didn't understand how to behave. The guy kept looking at the girl's face, as if he was seeing her for the first time. Araceliya became embarrassed, and her cheeks instantly turned pale pink. Damien said he just wanted to make sure she was okay. Araceliya asked what if she had bruises under her clothes. Damien told her to check herself and send her an invoice if she found anything. Araceliya was very irritated by Damien's manner of communication. Upon entering, Damien immediately called the knight to him. He told Isaac to use all his abilities, adding that he would find out absolutely everything about these mercenaries. The next day, Damien went straight to the Duke's villa. Ignoring the servant's words, he headed to his father's office. Damien asked how he could send such a wonderful gift to his daughter-in-law. The Duke sat calmly, asking what the conversation was all about. Damien threw some sheets of paper on the table in front of his father and told him to choose. He said that he could report his father's atrocities to his beloved. The Duke immediately cried out that how could he threaten his own father? These mercenaries wrote a sincere confession, which the Duke did not expect at all. Damien asked if he knew what would happen to him if the news reached the Emperor. The very thought of this sent shivers down the Duke's spine. The Duke cried out that Damien was just a pathetic scumbag. Damien said that he would never give up on this marriage. He repeated over and over again that his father should simply make a choice. The Duke sat with his head bowed, his gaze fixed on the sheets. Damien put another sheet on the table, saying that he had already prepared everything. He said it was a written consent for his marriage, that he only needed to sign. Without even showing his anger, the Duke reached for the pen and signed the agreement. There are only a day left before the wedding, and today is the day of signing the marriage contract. Araceliya said that they wanted to certify the marriage contract. The priest swore to keep the information in the strictest confidence. Hearing this, smiles spread across Damien and Aracelia's faces. Leaving the temple, Aracelia said that they would see each other tomorrow. Suddenly, she asked him not to leave. Damien looked at her questioningly. Lowering her head slightly, she said that she wanted to warn him. She said that he shouldn't fall in love with her despite all her charm. Damien said that such reasoning could be seen as a sign of deviation. The girl said that her unearthly beauty caused a lot of trouble. Winking at him, she said that unrequited love poisons the soul. Damien replied that she was acting too self-confident. As she was leaving, Aracelia said that he could count however he wanted. Turning around, she added that they would see each other tomorrow at the ceremony. Damien nodded his head and asked him to take care of himself. Someone was watching Damien from behind the bushes nearby. The little man wondered why these two were talking to the priest. He understood that they wanted to register their marriage in the temple. But one does not meet with the priest responsible for the documents without a good reason. Having put down his tools used for surveillance, the man left. But suddenly, a sly smile appeared on his face. He realized that there was more between them than just marriage vows. He realized that Damien and Aracelia were up to something unclean. It turned out to be the guy Frederick hired. He decided to hurry. A couple of hours later, the young man was in Frederick's office. Frederick asked in surprise why Aracelia went to the priest. The young man said that he had not been able to find out what they had assured him. Frederick exhaled heavily and remained silent. But he understood that he was right. Having loudly closed the book, Frederick thought about something, and his anxiety increased. Frederick told the boy to go ahead and gave the following instructions. Frederick wanted to talk to Aracelia alone, because tomorrow was her wedding.